Welcome to Off the Record, talking real estate with Joe and Michaela. If you're interested in the Portland, Oregon real estate market and want the unvarnished inside scoop, you've come to the right place. Thanks for giving us a listen. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. It is Joe and Michaela. Michaela, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Busy day, but so excited to get here in the studio with you and talk about some new construction. What do you think about that?
Likewise. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. So, hey, today's episode is all about if you're thinking about buying new construction. So a home that is in the process of being built or has been built. We're going to talk about the pros and cons, things to consider when thinking of buying new construction, how a new construction development works, and then maybe some questions to ask and anything else that comes up in the meantime.
Sounds good.
Yeah, right on. All right. So let's talk about new construction. So new construction technically is a builder has a bunch of lots, could be 2 lots, 3 lots, could be 50 lots, could be 100 lots. And they decide to build on those. Usually they have their own sales team, their own property. And in our market right now with low inventory, we're seeing more and more people look at builders because the inventory for new construction is actually going up. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit.
I think this is good for people to know because before I got in the business, my understanding of new construction was you are responsible for finding your own lot, buying that lot, and then building a brand new home on it. And I think a lot of people don't understand that that's not the only way to do it.
Right. And you can do it that way.
Right. But
you can do it that way, but the majority of new construction homes are sold through builders, through developments. And on the west side right now, a good example of that is the South Hillsborough development, which has 7 or 8 or 9 different developers who have 20, 30, 40, 50 different lots that they're building on right now. There's a couple of different great developments in Happy Valley, Clackamas area, and then up in Vancouver, I know there's quite a few going on right now as well. And when inventory is low, like I said, people will look at what's available. And right now there's a lot of new construction homes coming out of the ground. So let's start off by talking about the pros and cons. Pros, you get a brand new home.
Who doesn't love that?
The carpets are absolutely pristine. The walls are pristine. All the appliances are brand new. It's got that new home smell. It's awesome. It's wonderful. And usually the development is brand new as well. So everything else around you is brand new. And that's kind of cool, you know?
Yeah.
It's always kind of fun driving around in those neighborhoods going, wow, this just kind of, because you, like for us on the west side here, I see these pieces of land and know, okay, at some point there's going to be homes coming out of that probably. And to see that happen is always just kind of like, yeah, wow, this was a field like 3 months ago and now there's houses here.
The one in South Hillsborough, I just drove through it yesterday. It's so beautiful, but it's like a utopia. You get that feeling of everything's so perfect. The grass has just been laid.
Yeah. It's really well organized. You know, the streets are coming in. The infrastructure will come in eventually. But that's one of those things that is always a little bit weird when you drive through the neighborhoods and it's like, well, there's really stores or shops or businesses or where's all that at? And that comes in eventually. But the brand new home smell is always wonderful. That's pro number one. You get a warranty with new construction. That's always kind of cool, you know? And not having to worry about a whole bunch of stuff in the first year is always a great thing. Now, you can get a warranty on a resale home as well, but new construction home warranties are a little bit more broad, cover a little bit more of the construction of the home. So that's always cool.
Is that similar to a resale warranty or is it a builder warranty? What's the difference there?
Builders' warranty is a little bit different, and different builders have different warranties. They all require to give a certain amount, and that's one of those things that when we talk about questions to ask, you always want to ask to get a copy, and they're required to give it to you, but make sure you read it and make sure you get a copy and read through it to see exactly what's covered. But pretty much everything in the home, except for wear and tear and those type of things, is usually covered. Another pro is builder rebates, concessions, or built-in rate buy-downs. There's a lot of different programs out there right now where builders are trying to incentivize buyers to come by their development, right? So the more inventory starts hitting the market, the more competition there is, and the more builders have to get aggressive with trying to stand themselves out differently from the rest of the competition. I've been seeing a lot more buyer rate buy-downs than I've ever seen before. And just for listener out there, the buyer rate buy down means a builder will say, hey, when you buy a home through us and use our mortgage lender, we're going to guarantee a rate of X, or we'll give you $8,000 towards your closing costs to buy down whatever rate you're at with the company you're with. Are you seeing more of that too?
Yeah. It seems like almost every listing they're offering something like that. I think they just want to see more activity with buyers out there. So
yeah,
it's a good way to incentivize people with these interest rates.
The other rebate, or not concession, but an incentivizer, is upgrades. Builders typically with most homes, unless it's a premium lot, you're going to get a basic home and then pay above and beyond for the upgrades, like the better appliances or different flooring or
air conditioning.
Definitely air conditioning is always an upgrade.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's also some of the incentives that I've been seeing out there is, hey, when you build with us, you're going to get XYZ upgrades and be able to spend maybe $10,000 in our upgrade store. And just for you guys out there, so when you buy a new construction home, they usually will have like a showroom where you go to and pick out all the colors and the door frame or the appliances and this and that and the other. So a lot of different decisions to be made, and some cost more than others. So that's
Yes,
a way to
they do.
incentivize. Let's talk about cons a little bit, Michaela.
All right.
Because there's definitely cons. I mean, you can't get a brand new home and have this really cool neighborhood and this and that without there being some downsides to this, because every beautiful situation has some downsides as well. So the biggest one for me is just the incredibly different quality that different builders have. And some builders pride themselves on the quality of their craftsmanship, and other builders, some of the national brands, will not name any names right here, really don't put a lot of thought into quality.
Right.
You've seen that, haven't you?
Yeah, and I feel like we have a pretty decent idea for what builders are better quality than others. But what would be a good way for people to find that out? Because when you go tour new construction homes, you're looking at the model home. So you're looking at the best one, you know, the one that they're showcasing to everybody. We don't know that all the other homes on the block are going to be of that quality.
It's tough, and it's really, really difficult to walk through those homes and identify, oh, this feels like better construction than what we saw over there with Builder X.
Right.
It really comes down to talking to a professional that has had experience with people buying and living in those homes, right? And, you know, this is one of those times in real estate where experience really does matter. And being able to talk to someone to say, hey, what's the reputation of this builder? Or do you have clients that have bought in this development with this builder? What's their feedback? What do they think about it now that it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years old? Those type of things. Because there is a big difference. And that's definitely a con, just because you would expect in a new home, you're going to get top quality and it's going to be better than the resale homes that are out there. And unfortunately, a set of builders that just don't deliver that, right? I mean, we see homes over in Northeast Portland built in the 1920s, you know, 1920s Portland bungalows that are better construction than what they're building now. And it's just craftsmanship and a dedication to the quality of what they're doing. And that's not always the case. So you definitely need to look out for that. The other thing is small lots, right? Yeah. With just how prices are these days, builders have to maximize their profit. And the only way to do that is to put more homes in their development. So whatever the county or the city says that they can do as far as unit numbers, housing numbers, they're going to do that, right? So if that means you get a 0.08 lot or a 0.09 lot with a fence, you know, 3 feet from the side of your home and a backyard that's maybe 4 feet deep, that's kind of what it is. And unfortunately, that's the reality of where we're at right now with the inventory raising the price of real estate. And that goes not just for homes, but also the land that goes with it. So.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, at a higher purchase price, you can get a bigger lot size for sure. Not as big as, you know, a lot of people hope for. So that's always kind of a hard conversation or realization as you're walking through these homes.
In some, it's different in different parts of town, right? So I know in Lake Oswego, once you get over $1 million, $1.25 million, you can get a pretty good size yard. When you're in Southwest Portland, it's a little bit more difficult. Out in Happy Valley, Clackamas, Hillsborough areas, boy, it's going to be really, really tough to get any type of size lot. And there's not really any options on that. It's not like you can say, well, I'll pay another $50,000 for an extra size. They've already got all of them parceled out. It is what it is.
They don't care. They have the 0 setback rule, which is newer, where they can build the next home on your property line. Right. So that property line is the side of the next home, which is just crazy. But
yeah,
which is what it is.
Begs the question, ask for the size of the insulation in the walls, right? I mean, you don't want to hear the family next door cooking their meal if their kitchen's right on the other side of your living room or something like that. It's almost like condo living in some spots.
Yeah.
So small lots, definitely a reality that a lot of people are living with. Little or no flexibility on price. It's one of those things where if they have the inventory, they're not going to be very flexible on what the price is, right? Mm-hmm. And in a lot of instances, these builders, especially the national guys, have very deep pockets, and they're just willing to let the market play out and see where it's at before they make any decisions on pricing. And too many people, I think, go into a negotiation with a builder's representative thinking it's like resale. It hasn't sold in 190 days. Of course, they're going to lower the price.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, they have numbers to meet, and a lot of these places are publicly traded, meaning they're very strict on saying this is what we're going to get, even if we have to wait a year or 2 years to get it. A lot of times they price knowing that they're a little above the market. But with inventory, they think, well, we'll take a shot at it, and if it doesn't work, we'll hold it on the market for a year, and prices will probably meet up with us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So little or no flexibility on price is definitely an issue. The thing that I think a lot of people don't understand, there's a lot of things, but one of the big ones is how much upfront money you have to have when you're buying a new construction home, especially if you want to add all the bells and whistles and the upgrades and everything, because you'll make the offer on the home. And much like resale, you'll have a earnest money that you'll put down, whether it be 10, 12, 14, 15%. And after that, you think, okay, I'm done until I put my deposit down or the rest of my down payment at closing. Well, not so much so. A lot of builders are going to, invite you to their showroom to make all the decisions on the things that you want to have. And then from there, you're going to get all excited about, wow, that's the dining room chandelier that we want. These are the lighting fixtures, and I don't want that refrigerator. I want that refrigerator, right? And all of that comes at a price, and you have to then put down the amount that's the difference between the regular stuff and the upgraded stuff that you wanted. And many times that can be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. So being prepared for that is critically important, right?
It's hard not to get carried away, too. I mean, you're getting what you want, a brand new, shiny home. Why not get that upgraded chandelier, refrigerator? I mean, the sky's the limit until you realize that you got to...
Well, then it becomes a heartbreaker that, I have to put this money down, The good builders will communicate, just like the good brokers will. They'll communicate and say, hey, remember, we're going to need maybe 50% down payment on the cost of these right now. So when you come to the showroom, keep your decision-making in mind within, the budget that you have to work with. But more times than not, they don't.
No, they want you to fall in love before.
They do. Because, you'll find the money somewhere, right? Basic amenities, unless you want to pay for the upgrades, is one of the cons that we had. We just kind of went through that. Basic amenities for some builders are fantastic, right? There's a handful of builders out there that offer baseline, just amazing stuff. The majority right now don't. So just be prepared for that. And usually there's very little customization outside of paint and appliances that you can do. Like if you wanted to move a wall and say, hey, I want French doors here and I want a covered patio here. No. Not with the big development. If you're doing a custom home build, you want to have that all figured out up front, right, when the plans are being done, because change orders can be very expensive with a custom home builder. But with the builders that we're talking about, most of the developments, which is about 95% of the new construction sales, they are not going to change. They have a build deadline that they're working off of, and those type of changes, A, they don't have time for, B, that would mean permitting, which is dealing with the county more than they have to. So it's really not gonna be something that they can really work with.
Got it.
Okay. So now we want to talk about things to consider when thinking of buying your new home. The one thing that we tell everyone, right, whether it be resale or new construction, is talk to a mortgage broker, right, Michaela?
Please.
Yes. I mean, it just makes sense. It lets you know your budget, allows you to shop for the right homes, lets you know what kind of cash you'll have left on hand to do those upgrades if you want to do them. You know, you'll need to factor in closing costs, all those type of things. So getting your budget, getting all of the financial side of things in place is critically important anytime you buy a home, but especially with new construction, because there are those other cash considerations that you have to have, you know. Plus, when you go into a new construction development, they usually will have lenders that they work with, and they're going to be offering you all sorts of different crazy benefits or different rebates or this or that or the other. Having a mortgage broker that you know, trust, like working with, that can answer some of the questions that you're going to have after that experience is critically important.
I think it makes people feel more confident and comfortable, too, going into it, already having a relationship, knowing that someone's looking out for their best interests. And I don't think there's any harm in interviewing more than one mortgage broker, applying with two, because rates change by the day. And while you want to be comfortable with someone, you also want the best deal that you can get. So.
Right. And, you know, this is a whole nother show, but remember, making application does not show up on your credit report, right? So that myth, that fallacy, don't worry about that. They're not going to bring your credit down by making an application. So, you know, you got that going for you. The other thing is there are new construction loans out there, right? And sometimes the builders have access to those. More times than not, they're stuck with only a handful of products, financial products. Mortgage brokers, on the other hand, can definitely show you everything that's available in the marketplace. And once again, this is all another show, but be very wary of the national mortgage companies that you see with all those advertisements. They advertise on TV as much as they do because they make profit margins that allow them to do so, right? And those crazy low rates, guess what? They come at your expense. So be wary, be aware, and at least interview one or two local mortgage brokers who can help you find the best product. And then after that, you'll be probably knowledgeable enough to see whether a national or whether the builder broker will work for you. The next thing that you want to consider when you're buying a new home is whether you want to have your own representative or not. And that's a big one.
What do you mean by that?
So do you want to have someone looking out for your best interest, a real estate professional looking out for your best interest, or do you trust that the builder's representative will explain everything and put your best interest first ahead of the builder? That seems like a loaded question, right?
It is a very loaded question.
But a lot of people don't understand that you get to choose whether you have representation or not. And the beautiful thing in real estate right now is that it's a system that's set up where the seller will pay for your representative. So let's say if Michaela's representing you and you say, hey, I'm looking for new construction homes. Will you help me out? Absolutely. Okay, when do I have to pay you? Well, good news, you don't have to pay me. The seller's representative pays a total commission. So let's say a commission is 5%, and 2.5 will go to the seller's representative. 2.5, the seller will pay as what's called a co-op, a courtesy to broker or cooperating broker, someone that's bringing them a buyer. They're willing to pay money through a commission to have a buyer represent you and you alone, right? For me, I always think the best way to go is to have your own representation. No matter what it is, whether buying a home, whatever your situation is, I want someone who has my best interest at heart, right? I want them to be able to answer my questions in a way that I know is not serving themselves or serving another person or the builder. And that's a tricky thing, especially when it comes to new construction. And we're going to explain that here in a second. So I talked about a little bit about how it works and that the seller will pay for it. And here are really the three ways that you can do it. So you can have no representation. You can represent yourself in this, or you can have a independent broker like Michaela represent you. Or there's dual agency, meaning an agent that represents both the seller and you, the buyer. They owe honesty and fair dealings to both party. Most builders' representatives are not allowed by the builder to do dual agency. It's very rare, right? So really it comes down to, do you want no representation, or do you want a professional independent of the builder representing you? The other thing is, if you don't do it the right way, you can be stuck with no representation, right? And we've had that happen just recently, where we had clients who didn't know that they were interested in new construction. And we'll explain this a little bit more in a few minutes here, but they ended up being stuck in a situation where they couldn't have representation. And now they have no one representing them.
Which is ridiculous, because it just wasn't explained to them correctly. They got wrapped up in the bright new shiny new home and the model home, the tour, the whole deal. So it's not hard for that to happen on accident.
No, that's unfortunate, because everyone, if they want representation, should have their own representation. And the fact that they were able to be strong-armed into the fact that, oh, well, that can't happen for you, and we'll explain that here in a second, is unfortunate. So if you want to have your own representative, right? If you say, yeah, I think this is a big transaction for me, this is a lot of money, I want a professional representing me. Much like if I was getting sued by Google, I would want a very, very good attorney. Or if, the United States government was after me for some reason, I would want a really good attorney, right?
Right.
Or if I'm having heart surgery, go ahead and give me the best heart surgeon you got, right? Same thing if I'm going to go out and spend $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 for my new home. Yeah, I want someone watching over the P's and the Q's. So if that's you want representation. You want to interview brokers, right? Before you go visit the builder and before you go to the building sites, if at all possible. And sometimes, you don't even know that you're interested, and you visit there, there's a new construction site around the corner from your neighborhood, and you walk over there and it's like, oh, wow, okay, I'm gonna go look at this home, this and that and the other. Be careful, right? Because you can get stuck into a situation where all of a sudden you're talking about this, and you go home and you talk about it with your wife or husband, and you are all of a sudden a buyer, and you think, we could sell our home and buy one of these new construction homes. We talk to our lender and he says, yep, you guys can afford that. You go back over to the new construction site and they're like, yeah, we have all these forms that here's what you can look through, so you can read through everything. And then you might say to them, well, I think we want to have our own representation. Well, I'm sorry, but you had to inform us at the very first time you came on property that you have a representative. So you can have someone represent you, but we can't pay them. Which, it's very difficult as a real estate professional to not get paid and represent someone, because there's a risk involved. That, and we broker through a company and therefore profit, right? So it's a very difficult situation that you can find yourself in. The way that you want to avoid that is by deciding, once you figure out if you want to be in the biz or into the game of buying a new construction home, interview some brokers or talk to your broker that you have, that like, trust, and let them know that you're thinking about that. Make sure that they have experience working with builders, right? And then also ask your broker their opinion on the builder you're interested in, because how else are you going to know whether they build a quality home? You can go online, look at reviews and that type of thing, but brokers, for the most part, know and understand exactly how that's set up.
Right. And especially when we go to represent, or no, even have a client looking for a resale home on a new build in 2018, when we walk through that home, we can see the wear and tear and how it holds up over time. So absolutely. All right, so let's talk about how a new construction development works. I'm sure most of everyone listening has either driven through one or walked by one, but it's a little bit different when you're thinking of buying a home, right? What are the rules? What's going on there? Because there's a lot of guys in hard hats and all sorts of stuff on the street, and the model home is closed, and they say they're not open until Wednesday through Sunday, and what's going on here? First thing is, go ahead and feel free to walk the property. They want you to see the inventory that we have, and a lot of times they'll have signs out front saying this one's available, and it's this type of floor plan. You can always go online. Most of the time they'll have all that information on there. They don't mind if you're walking around. If they have signs that say no walking through here, yeah, that's a different deal. But for the most part, if there's no sign saying that, feel free to walk around. If you're approached by a salesperson, engage with them. Absolutely talk with them. If they ask to get any of your contact information, if you haven't established whether you want to have your own representation or not, I would hold off, right? So, because what they may be doing is saying, okay, I got your name and contact information. You're now signed up with us, and your agent wasn't here the first time you were on the property. Sorry. Now we represent you.
Yeah, now we represent you, ipso facto, right? So I would say don't give any information out. Or if you do have a broker that you've interviewed or one that you know, like, trust, that go ahead and give their information to the person on the lot. It's never a bad thing to say, yeah, sure. My name's Joe Reitzig. I'm interested in these properties. Let me give you my broker's name. Her name is Michaela Trelaw, and here's her contact information. Can I assume that she's signed up now with you? They'll say yes, and away you go. Now you have representation if you want it. And you can still work with the builder if you want. But 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, I should say, they're going to be okay with that, right?
Right.
Because they just want to sell you a home. But if they cannot pay a realtor, that's a big bonus to them as well. So
lots to look out for.
Yeah, for sure. Setting appointments is always great because a lot of times they'll have 2 or 3 people there, this and that and the other. Once you share that, if you do have a broker, their contact information, that type of thing, say, hey, I'd like to schedule a time to look through these 3 models. Can we set something up? And, oh, yeah, I'm going to have my broker join us as well. I know they're more than happy to do that. And it's always kind of the best way to do it because then you have their uninterrupted attention. You can get all the details, all those type of things. I mean, you've done that before where you've scheduled with the builder, and it's just a better experience.
It is. I did it a couple weeks ago. It's fun. We got to see 4 model homes, which is always helpful to compare the direct floor plans.
Because those aren't always unlocked, right?
No.
I mean, they're staged. They've got stuff in there.
They have salespeople standing at the front door practically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. We walked 5 different lots, and they were able to compare their view, the lot size, how they sit on the street, their neighbors, all that good stuff.
Once you get to a new development site, and you've probably all driven by one or have one around the corner from you at this point, what are the rules? What can you do? And is it okay to walk around the property?
It always feels like you're not allowed, but you are. It's okay.
It's okay. Unless there's signs saying, hey, careful, this is not a public zone. Go ahead and look around a little bit, In fact, they want you to, I think, don't they?
I mean, they want to sell it eventually.
If you're approached by one of the salespeople, if you haven't decided whether you want to have representation or not, maybe refrain from getting your contact information. Or if you do have a broker representing you, like Michaela, go ahead and give them Michaela's information and say, hey, here's our broker's information. Here's our contact information. Could you send us both package of information of what you've got available? The other thing is setting an appointment. I mean, you were at a site last week, I think, weren't you, where you set an appointment and you were able to get some quality time with one of the sales reps and see a bunch of the homes there.
Yeah, it was wonderful. I mean, we were there for almost 4 hours. It was very productive. We saw 4 or 5 different model homes, which is always so nice to compare the floor plans. Mm-hmm. between them because they vary so much. And then we got to walk the lots of the future lots that they could pick, which is always so exciting to see the bare land and compare the view and the neighbors and lot size and all that good stuff. So It was fun.
Nice. So if you have a broker, sign them up. If you don't, just be careful about giving your information because they could sign you up and say, well, sorry, your broker wasn't here the first time you came on the property, so we're not going to pay your broker and you don't have any representation now, right? Which is always kind of a bummer. So let's talk about some questions to ask. Question number 1, ask for what's available now and coming up with general time frames.
Right, because they work in phases, so they'll do 10, 50 homes, who knows, at a time, and then the next season they'll have a new phase that comes out. So oftentimes those are different floor plans, different price ranges, and so it's good to know what's coming up in case, you might not be ready tomorrow to lock into one, but you might be ready in 3 months. So
yeah, always good to know. Question 2, ask to be able to tour finished homes like the one you're interested in.
Smart.
Yeah. Maybe they have another development that has the floor plan that you'd like or the finishes that you're looking for. And it's always, I don't know about you, but I'm a visual person. I can't just imagine it, right?
No.
I need to see it, touch it, feel it, and get my bearings on it that way. And being able to see something that's completed is always kind of nice.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Ask what builder specials, discounts, and buy downs are available.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, because they're not...
Do they always advertise those things? Or?
Not always.
Why?
Because if they don't have to give you the rebate, maybe they don't, they save that money.
Right.
I don't know. Most of the time it's marketed. Most of the time it's out there. But with some builders I've noticed, you got to ask for it, right? So always a good question to ask. Another one is ask when your earnest money will become non-refundable.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So you get into mutual agreement, you sign the builder's docs. That's the other thing is most builders have their own sales documents, right? Which means that it's not the standard OREF or realtor forms that are out in the Portland metro area that everyone works off of. So if they have their own docs, you definitely want to get someone else's eyes on that to see, well, what does this mean? And then things like the earnest money and when it becomes non-refundable oftentimes can have a lot of jargon and verbiage, right?
And it's in fine print.
And it's in fine print, sure, yeah. So a lot of things to look at, but also I think the big one is when is my earnest money now become your money? Is it 30 days after mutual acceptance? Is it a week after they start building? Or when is that? Because it's kind of a big thing, especially if I got $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on a new construction build.
Totally. And you want to have the time to ask the questions that are kind of the next phase.
Right.
After getting into that mutual acceptance before your money goes away, because there's a lot to iron out before it's a done deal, and that's definitely
and a lot
an
of times you
important
need
day.
an extension. Hey, our deadline for our earnest money is, next Friday. I don't think we're going to have these questions answered. Let's go ahead and get an extension on that for another week. Okay? Sure. Instead of it being Thursday at 4:30 and your deadline's at 5 o'clock or 9 a.m. or whenever on Friday, trying to get all that hammered out. Ask what their track record is for completing on time.
Ooh.
I know. We got some really good questions, don't we? Thank you for submitting all these wonderful questions. But yeah, if I'm trying to make, especially if I'm selling my home to get into this new construction home, I kind of need to know what your track record looks like.
Yeah.
Is it a within 2 weeks thing? Is it within 30 days? Do you have some that go 90 days? What are we talking about here? Timing can be very critical, even without having to sell another home, but especially when you have another home.
Well, yeah, you could have a lease. You could be already packed up. It seems like more often than not, these things get pushed out a couple months after when we're told it's going to be ready.
Such a critical question to ask. I think the lease is a big one too, because builder says they're going to have the new construction home done on August 31st. Your lease is up September 15th. The other thing is how much leeway or lead time do they have to give you for a bump in the closure? So August 31st is when they said they're going to have it done. Your lease is done September 15th. On August 15th, they come in and say, well, no, it's going to be October 31st now.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Ouch.
Yeah. So knowing what happens in those situations is always critical. What other questions do we have, Michaela?
I think people ask me this a lot too, is how new construction homes appreciate in the first couple of years. So if I'm buyer and I'm thinking that I'm going to be in this next house for 5 to 7 years, does buying a new construction home hurt my investment?
No.
Okay.
So here's how it works. We talked earlier about the fact that a builder will sometimes, they're not going to come off of their price for the most part because they have the ability to hold on to it and have the market catch up. So if they're 3 to 5% above market for that home, and I've seen 8 to 10% above market, and they sell a couple of them, but they know within the next year they're going to be a lot closer to what the market is, especially with this appreciating marketplace that we've had over the years. So my advice is, knowing that you're probably going to buy a little bit above market for a new construction home, right? And just be aware of that. If there's a chance that you could be having to move in the next 12 to 24 months, you got to factor that in and know that, you already gave away maybe 1 year or 6 months to a year and a half of equity to get into a new construction home, right? If you're talking about 3, 5, 7 years, you should be fine. The market's going to catch up. And we have a couple of clients that are going to be putting their homes on the market later this spring they bought in 18, 19, 2020. They're going to do just fine. They may not get some of the prices that the new construction around them is getting because some of these people are still in the same development, right?
Yeah.
Which can be kind of challenging. But there's enough of a bump where usually you're going to do just fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. I think another thing that people wonder is if a new construction home is attainable for their first house. Is this, is there a price range that supports maybe the 400, 500,000 range? And if so, am I giving up any quality?
That's a good question. I think it depends on the area. If you're looking at Southwest Portland, like Oswego.
But that's with resale too, right?
It's with resale too. Yeah. But like Wilsonville, Sherwood, North Plains, Forest Grove, some of those areas that's not a bad commute if you're getting into town. Or we have a lot of Intel and Nike people that are out in North Plains because they have some super nice, affordable new construction homes that are available and they're fairly reasonable. Our average right now, what's our average price? 500,000?
A little above, I think.
A little above that. You're going to get homes that you can afford, new construction homes for $5 to $550, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So that is our show on buying new construction homes, which seems to be all the rage right now. We talked about pros and cons, things to consider, how a new construction build development works, and a bunch of questions to ask. Just a reminder that you can go on to liveportland.com/new construction episode. And we've got a lot of really neat slides on there of information on how Oregon does with new construction, what the national scene looks like with new construction. So, feel free to visit the website from there.
Great. Thank you for listening and taking the time. I think if there's anything you can take away from this episode, it's thinking about whether you'd like representation or not when you're considering buying new construction and taking the time to interview a few brokers to find a good fit before you really dive into this head first.
Because it doesn't cost them anything. The seller will pay for you to have your own representation, right?
Exactly.
All right, guys, have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us today. If you're interested in finding out more about Joe, myself, or the Live Portland team, you can go to liveportland.com. Thanks for giving us a listen and see you next time on the Off the Record podcast.